The New York Mets have clinched a playoff berth in the most dramatic fashion. I got my dad on with me. Let's talk about the Mets, a playoff team in 2024.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. And with me today, I got my dad. We're celebrating. I got the champagne right here. Why don't you just say what's up to the people while I take a nice little swig?
All right, everybody in Met World, we did it. And I will say that I had to take one for the team, and I had to switch off my TV and go into the computer, and I had a couple phone calls that I was on. So out of the corner of my eye, I'm watching this game unfold. Really pissed off, that whole roller coaster ride that we all get ups and downs. There we go again. I mean, it was amazing, that inning, the 6-run inning. I didn't even get to kind of watch it and totally embrace it and enjoy it. So that was kind of sad. And then when Diaz came in and blew it, I was like, holy cow, are you kidding me? And then Lindor, what a beautiful thing. Woo!
I'll tell you what, this speaks to the superstitions that all fans go through, because I talked to my dad at about 2:30, and he had the reason why we're watching the game together today is he had those calls at like 3 and 3:30. So I told him, why don't you start those meetings? I feel like once you're in the calls, we're going to start to see some magic. And that's when the 6-run inning happened, right around when he's in his first call. I also did a little bit of a switch up on my own. I was watching it in my office here, and my wife works remote on Mondays. So I just made the decision, I'm going to go back out. I needed some consoling. So I watched the game with her. She's not even a big baseball fan at all. She's a Mets fan because of me. She got in it. Dad, just to let you know, Leah's a Mets fan now. She was anxious. She was nervous. She was really going through it with me. Unbelievable to clinch in that way. All the talk about the rain and how everything's set up, it turns into a game we'll never forget. The New York Mets showing that they deserve this more than the Atlanta Braves. The Braves, they might get it in this second game. Who cares? The Mets did it first. They clinched the big game when both the teams were going for it. And you really battled back. Spencer Schwellenbach was unbelievable. I mean, you can't fault him at all. 7 strong innings. But the New York Mets, led by Tyrone Taylor to start it off in that 8th inning, having a great at-bat, ripping a double, getting Schwellenbach out of the game. You then just rally from there and score 6 runs. And, I mean, Francisco Lindor, we could talk about Shohei Ohtani. Statistically, he's the MVP. But by definition of most valuable, tell me that's not the most valuable player in baseball. I don't care. Whatever. There's Judge, there's Witt, there's Ohtani. He's our guy. He's an MVP. And these 2 wins, it was Francisco Lindor that came through time and again, even with the ailing back.
MVP.
That home run by Lindor, I mean, we can go through the 6-run rally, and I will, but you have Edwin Diaz. The way the Mets managed the situation, Brandon Nimmo caps off the 6-run rally with a 2-run homer. So you have the 3-run lead, and you start off with Phil Maton. Maton hits the first batter, gives him a base hit. There's runners at the corners with 1 out. You go to Edwin Diaz to try to get the 5-out save, and Edwin just doesn't have it. For one, he gets the comebacker, then has a chance to get out of the inning when Pete Alonso makes a diving stop on a ground ball dead. I might be telling you some of this. I don't know how closely you were able to watch.
I missed that. I think I saw the replay.
So my dad's going to have to go back and watch the rest of this game when his meetings are done for the day. I wonder how many people have lost their minds at their offices today. I'm sure there's a lot of Mets fans who are going through it. I hope some of you are watching this stream from your desk right now. If you are, please comment that I'm watching this while my boss is looking the other way. But Edwin Diaz doesn't cover first, and that was just the beginning of, oh no, here we go again. Ultimately, Ozzie Albies gets the bases clearing double that has Diaz, and a combination of Diaz and Stanek cough up the 3-run lead. But for Francisco Lindor to get an opportunity with a runner on and to hit that home run, it's unbelievable. And we'll go back and we'll look and we'll try to see what other Mets have had seasons like this. For my money, It's the best season I've ever seen a Met have in my lifetime, and it's going to go down as one of the greatest ever. Francisco Lindor, man, just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable that he came through in that spot to hit that home run. Not to mention the inning prior, he got one of the hits that drove in a run during the Mets 6-run rally, and he scored a run going first to third, and then also scoring on a sac fly by Mark Vientos that wasn't hit that deep. So Lindor just unbelievable. There's no way to describe it. He is as good of a Met as I've ever seen.
He's awesome. And you know what, even thinking back, looking at, you know, like Kelly Johnson back to, was it like 2015?
Yeah.
You know, when they went to World Series, that's like, you got Jose Iglesias and Taylor just like that. I mean, it's just, you got to have those other parts. Lindor is amazing. He's incredible. And, you know, hats off to Taylor. I mean, you see what he did. I mean, you see Bader doing, you know, unfortunately nothing, and some of these other guys struggling. But, man, I'll tell you what, kudos to Taylor and Iglesias for just being a part of this. But, yeah, Lindor is awesome. I mean, I've seen a lot of guys over the years, back as Ryan talks about on the podcast, back from my early years of the big 86 World Series and all that. That was awesome. And just watching some of those great players in all line. You said like David Wright and Beltran and Piazza and all that. But, man, Lindor, he's cementing himself as a Met great for sure. Yeah,
it's in my lifetime, it's Piazza, then Wright, now Lindor. And like I said, this as an individual season, what the Mets have done, they earn this. They earn this, you know, more than any Mets team I can think of. I mean, this is my 6th season covering the New York Mets, and now I can officially say it. I mean, this is the best season I've ever gotten the chance to cover on this show. It's been such an incredible journey. I've gone 7 days a week now since the middle of May, every single day talking about this team. And when it was looking, you know, like it was going to go in the wrong direction, when Schwellenbach is carving, the Mets are losing 3-0, or when the Braves get one more lick at breaking our hearts, there's still that part of me that's like, this season can end today. And I was very confident that the Mets would have won a second game, but man, does this save us all so much anxiety to have to watch that second game, needing to have it. And you know what? Now the Mets have an opportunity to really stick it to the Braves. And I don't even know who's pitching. I haven't looked to see. I'm sure the Mets are making some roster move, and maybe it's a Joey Lucchesi. I don't know. Maybe I'll try to find that out when we go to an ad break. But just finally to see this team get the job done, to get it done that way, it's awesome. And honestly, I still think this team can make a run, but I really don't even care what happens from this point on. That win to me solidifies this as an incredible season for the Mets, and just you got to just love this team. It's that simple.
Well, what was great too is seeing the shock on the Braves' face and their fans. That's pretty awesome. and I will say that I can't wait for the second game to be over and to see the celebration that these guys are going to have, because I guess Major League Baseball said not that they would celebrate after the first game. I'm sure they're in the locker room kind of pumped up.
You think
right
maybe
now.
they're passing around one bottle of champagne, everyone get a little sip, you know? I mean, I don't know.
They might, but I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward to seeing those guys go nuts after the second game. And that's going to be an awesome post game for everybody to watch. That's going to be crazy. And Ryan, thank you for doing this, because all of us Met fans out here enjoy you being on there 7 days a week. It's so awesome. And there's been a lot of times where it's funny, like the roles have reversed, where we've been on the couch. All of us have been on the couch, and Ryan's kind of walked us through. We've all been on the ledge, including him. But this is an awesome way to finish the day today. It's incredible. So happy. Can't wait to actually, we don't even know. Most likely we're playing the Brewers, but who knows? I mean, the Braves might be so deflated that, you know, all of a sudden we're flying out to San Diego for the game tomorrow. Who knows what's going to happen? But it's can't wait to keep listening to you and watching you.
Well, thank you so much, Dad, for joining me. He's got another one. So he's going to head off to his next meeting here. I'm going to give you a quick break, regroup, and then we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about this unbelievable game. Thank you so much for joining me, Dad. You've heard it before. I do this show because of the example you set for me. You made me this crazy Mets fan. I always say that I do my show for that man that's sitting right there. He tunes in every day when he goes on his walks with his dog Hershey, when he's going on his jogs. And sometimes he gets mad at me, you know, if I turn in a 24-minute show and, you know, it takes him like 27 minutes maybe to get through his 3-mile jog, because he's a stud, by the way, at 59 years old, running in under 30 minutes for 3 miles. But if I don't give him that long enough show, sometimes he comes at me. But overall, every day I know that I have that one everyday listener, And I really do appreciate everything you've done for me. And I wish we were celebrating together, but we will later tonight, maybe. And this one is to you, Dad. Cheers. We're in the playoffs. You got a water there or something? There you go. Yeah. All right. So we're going to be back in a quick minute. Thank you again, Dad, for joining me.
You're welcome. Take care.
All right, today's episode, it is brought to you by FanDuel. And I mean, come on, if you weren't betting on this game, well, you didn't need to because all of the pressure was already there. You didn't need to add on to that stress, but you got football games going. Monday Night Football tonight. FanDuel is the place to go. And when you sign up with FanDuel right now, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. When you go to the FanDuel app, you can watch live with your game and get play-by-play, live betting updates, all that available at FanDuel.com. Again, you place that first bet, the offer, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, win or lose. Sign up at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Changing things up on the fly here. Bear with me as you're watching on YouTube as I go from the dual layout to the single layout. What a game. What a game. To kind of go back and start from the beginning a little bit, we got to give Tyler McGill some flowers for that performance because Tyler McGill kept the Mets in this game. You knew you were going to be taxed with pitching. How are you going to get through it? You had to manage it in a really, interesting way because, for one, Schwellenbach is dealing from the jump. So it doesn't look like the Mets are going to be able to score off of him. So you have to have in the back of your mind, all right, if we go to Jose Budo in the fourth inning, we're not going to have him for a game two. So you had to keep that, in your head the whole time. And so I think the Mets probably pushed McGill a little bit further than they would have liked to. You saw against the Phillies Sunday Night Baseball, McGill versus Zach Wheeler, he was pulled after 4 innings because you didn't want him to face that lineup a third time through. But credit to Tyler McGill. Yes, he made a couple mistakes. Ozzie Albies got him for a 2-run homer. Ramon Laureano got one as well, a solo shot. But McGill was 1 out away from a quality start. So he really did his job. Huascar Braziban comes on in a still tight game. Again, because you're trying to save some of your bigger guys. And Braziban, a little bit of an avenger, but he got the out that he needed. Adam Ottavino, a scoreless 7th. And then all hell breaks loose in the 8th inning. I just want to go back to that rally that the Mets had because it was such a testament to what this team has been all year. Tyrone Taylor had a fantastic game. He nearly put a run on the board for the Mets earlier in the game when he hits one, a dribbler down the first base line that has some crazy spin on it. He tore the cover off the ball. He was booking it all the way. Another runner, as the broadcast pointed out, would have been thrown out on that play. The ball comes back fair. Taylor was in front of Schwellenbach to get to first base, so a tough throw for him. He gets the first, steals second, advances to third, where he's going on contact on a softly hit ball to the shortstop. He almost manufactured a run, but the Mets don't score in that spot because of Harrison Bader. And if you listen to my show this morning, the pregame leading in, I talked about the decision when it came to that third outfield spot. I knew Nimmo was going to be in. I knew Taylor was going to be in. I wasn't sure if the Mets were going to go with Jesse Winker, left on right with Schwellenbach pitching, Starling Marte, the best player of the group, or if they were going to go Harrison Bader and stick with defense, trying to maybe steal a couple outs with Tyler McGill on the mound. I wanted them to go with Marte. They went Bader, and there was 2 spots where Harrison Bader came up with an opportunity for the Mets to score, and he just didn't do it. But they got Starling Marte in the game in time. And before Marte, you also have to shout out Francisco Alvarez as Tyrone Taylor knocks out Schwellenbach. Joe Jimenez comes on, and Francisco Alvarez rips the double that scores Taylor, gets the Mets on the board. Marte comes up, gets the pinch hit, drives in Alvarez. Then Lindor comes up, runners at the corners, gets the first of those crucial hits he'd have late, drives in a run. Again, he goes first to third on a base hit by Jose Iglesias, who fell behind the count 0-2 as they brought in Raisel Iglesias, the Braves closer, to try to get the 6-out save. And Iglesias, Jose, fell behind the count, ends up doing what he's done all year, coming through clutch, especially in a 2-strike count, gets a hit, drives in Marte. Lindor goes to third, Vientos with the sac fly. And then again, Brandon Nimmo, that 2-run homer is massive. It's massive. And if you think back to this season and how any one game matters, remember Brandon Nimmo went into Atlanta and had that monster game. What was it? 2 home runs, like 5 RBIs. I don't remember off the top of my head. It was pretty incredible stuff what Nimmo did earlier in the season. Then here he comes through in a big spot. That's what makes this so gratifying, is seeing all these guys come through in their own way. Lindor and Nimmo being at the forefront of these 2 Mets wins. And you know what? Even Edwin Diaz, because yes, Diaz was a disaster in that 8th inning. He was. But Carlos Mendoza had a decision to make when Francisco Lindor hits the 2-run homer in the top of the 9th inning to give his team a lead. Do you go to Ryan Stanek, who, to his credit, has been okay lately and has pitched in a ton of big games with the Astros, so I don't think he would have been fazed by that moment, and they're going to need him in the playoffs. But you have an opportunity there. Who are you going to go to? 3 outs, you're going to clinch it. And I honestly liked, even though I was nervous, that they stuck with Edwin, because you know what? You're either going to win or lose with your guy on the mound. And Edwin Diaz delivered. He delivered for the New York Mets. He was able to get those last 3 outs. And of course, the last out, this is just what shows you that baseball is poetic. Baseball, you have to be romantic about baseball. And it's the only sport like this where narratives just find people. They find people where, for one, when the Braves come back, it's Travis d'Arnaud getting hit off the end of his bat, and it's Jared Kelenic who gets the hit where Edwin Diaz is in cover first. Because, of course, if you had to pick 2 Braves in that entire clubhouse, that whole roster, 2 Braves that you don't want to see beat the Mets, it was d'Arnaud and Kelenic because of their former Mets ties. So then to see d'Arnaud come back up and he makes the final out of the game, and not only does he make the final out of the game, it's a ground ball to Francisco Lindor. The ball finds him, and of course Lindor makes that last play to get the 27th out. To see the emotions go running through all these guys, knowing that they finally did it. They went from completely out of it, dead in the water at the end of May. And they're the best team in baseball over the final 4 months, and they don't collapse. Not only do they not collapse, they get in dramatic fashion. They come back. They show that grit. You feel so good about this Mets team. You really do. It's just such an unbelievable season we've all gotten the chance to enjoy. And I cannot wait to see the playoffs. I also think that it's a testament to this team to win it in game 1. Again, I know I said that before with my dad on, but it's worth repeating. If the Mets had won game 2 with, who knows, Bryce Elder or Dylan Dodd or whatever AAA pitcher the Braves would have called up to start game 2 of this doubleheader, if the Mets would have won that game, everyone would have said, oh, they backed in. You know, they just avoided the collapse because the Braves didn't need it. Well, now you can say that about the Braves if they win. And the Braves can go to San Diego. The Mets can go to Milwaukee. We'll find out, and I will talk about it on tomorrow's show, where we're at going into a wild card run. I will set the stage for all of that. But the Mets were able to take this into their own hands and get the job done and clinch in an incredible game that we will never forget. What I want to do here, I am going to, in a second, put up a screen. Let me regroup. I want to see who started this game, and then I'll sort of try to lead you into what to watch for this game too, because if you're there, if you got to play the ball game, I don't know, maybe beat up on the Braves. So I want to see if there's a starting lineup released. We'll come back in just a minute on the live stream. I appreciate all of you who are tuning in. Bear with me for just a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. If you got a chance to catch the Mets in the playoffs, because you know they're going to be there, whether they're in Milwaukee or San Diego, we still don't know. Make sure you use Game Time to get your tickets, because Game Time is the best place to go for last-minute tickets to sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. And they have their new feature, Game Time Picks, that makes it easier to get tickets for your favorite live events, as they'll filter out the fluff and show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. Download the Game Time app. You can create an account and use the code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, so big news for the final game here in this doubleheader. Final chance for the Braves to clinch. Chris Sale. Maybe he was resting. Maybe he was drinking champagne. I probably shouldn't make any light of the situation, but he's been scratched. He's not going to start this do-or-die game for the Braves. It'll be Grant Holmes, and I guess a bullpen game, as Chris Sale has been scratched due to back spasms. So we'll see what happens here. We're going to get Shervy because Joey Lucchesi in the building. The Mets have optioned Alex Young. Joey Lucchesi will make the start for the New York Mets. Alex Young, that means he is not eligible to pitch for the Mets for 15 days. He has been optioned. It's just like your typical designation during the season. So that pretty much, writes him off for the wild card round, the DS, maybe even the championship series. But I don't think Alex Young was going to make any playoff rosters. I had a feeling that Alex Young would be the move had the Mets won, because he was the first guy the Mets got up in game one there when McGill was struggling a little bit. So I thought the idea would have been, they were going to burn him. And then, hey, if you had a miraculous comeback, well, he'd be the guy you're going to option. So the Mets go that route. I know some people are wondering about the second man or the additional man you typically get in doubleheaders. That's not part of the rules in September. So the Mets couldn't just add Lucchesi to the 40, add him to the active roster as the additional guy. They had to do it this way. But this means you don't have to go with the full bullpen game. Joey Lucchesi going to get a chance to do something cool. You can try to pitch the Braves out of the playoffs, and going up against Grant Holmes for Atlanta. It's going to be fun to watch. I mean, no pressure, no stress. I'm not a big champagne drinker, but, it is that type of a day here. So maybe I'm going to kick back, polish off this bottle of champagne, and just watch the Mets hopefully knock the Braves out of the playoffs, because that would be fun. If the Braves do make the playoffs, well, they're going to be in pretty bad shape. They won't have Schwellenbach. Who knows if they're going to have Sale, whatever's going on with his back now. I don't know. I don't think Atlanta's got it this year. And if you do see the Braves, it's going to be in the NLCS. So maybe it does make sense. If the Braves clinch, the two teams meet in the center of the field. They all pour champagne over each other. Hey, maybe we'll see you in a couple of rounds. But incredible stuff for the Mets to get it done. And now we get to watch a carefree baseball game. I imagine Acuna is going to start at shortstop. Again, I haven't seen the lineup. Let me take a swig while I got the bottle on camera here. Hold up. Like I said, not a champagne drinker. I went on a cruise and they gave me that for free. Didn't think I was saving it for the Mets to clinch. That was all the way back in April. Just to take you through the story of the season, that was probably that day that I started the cruise when Alvarez ended up hurting his wrist on that slide against the Dodgers. And then it's spiraled a tailspin for the Mets. Regardless here, this is going to be a fun final game, and then you sort of gear up for what lies ahead. We still don't know which team the Mets are going to play. I don't know who I prefer, honestly. Considering how the Mets have played against the Brewers this season and the fact that they won 5 of 7 against the Padres, you think they'd probably prefer to go to San Diego. At the same time, think about the pitching the Padres have when it comes to their starters and the pitching that the Brewers have. In some respects, I still think the Brewers are the matchup I'd prefer. If you're just on the surface saying which team would it be better for the Mets to go up against, but who do I want to see win this second game of the doubleheader? It's the Mets. Hey, eliminate the Braves from the playoffs, and if you lose to the Padres, by all means. But I think this Mets team can win against anybody, and I think what this end of the season has done for them, I think it's taught them the sense of urgency they need to win playoff games, and we saw it yesterday where they jump out to the 5-0 lead and hold on to it. And we saw it today with their backs against the wall. We've seen it throughout the season, but I think this team got tight when it came down to slaying the dragon, slaying the giant, the team that always kills you, all the demons that stem from this Mets-Braves rivalry. And they were continuing to bear down on the Mets when they come back and the Braves get that lead themselves late. So I think this was the first big, giant test the Mets needed. And they passed it with flying colors by winning this game. So now you take this momentum, and this is going to be the ultimate testament of what Major League Baseball has wondered here with their new wildcard format. What do teams prefer? Is it the rest or is it the momentum? The Mets, after winning this way, and hey, if they end up behind Joey Lucchesi, Luis Angel Acuna, and Eddie Alvarez, find a way to win game 2 and knock the Braves out of the playoffs, they carry that momentum into San Diego. Your pitching is now in line the way you want it to be. You got Luis Severino for a game 1. You got Sean Manaea on regular rest for a game 2. And then if it goes to a game 3, you're going to have David Peterson, David Peterson on short rest, Jose Quintana fully rested, David Peterson, potentially Tyler McGill. You'll have everybody probably all hands on deck in that game if it is a do or die situation where you get to that game 3. But the Mets are now sitting exactly where they wanted to be coming into the day. You took care of business. And not only did you win, you won that game that way, one that we will be talking about for a very long time. I want to take a moment as I close off this stream, and I don't think I'm going to be doing a live stream with the Mets eliminate the Braves from the playoffs. It'll be fun, and we'll talk about it. I'll do a show later tonight for your typical morning release, 6 a.m. on YouTube, and before that, wherever you get your podcasts. So we'll have more shows coming, and we're going to keep doing it the same way once we get into the playoffs. A live stream after the game, a pregame show, essentially, for your next morning leading into the day. But I want to take a second here to thank all of you who have tuned in throughout this season. I am so grateful that I get to do this for a living between what I do with Locked On and just baseball. I'm the luckiest guy in the world with the career that I have, and I don't take it for granted at all for those of you who have made this show part of my daily routine. One of the things I have loved so much this year about having the Locked On Mets Insiders, which is our texting service, is I've gotten a little bit more personal with some of the most devoted listeners of this show. And I've just gotten so many great stories of people where they've told me how they interact with the show from, I apologize, I don't remember her name, but I wish one of our insiders, his wife, a happy birthday I guess it was last week or 2 weeks ago. And she loves the way I say YouTube in my intro, something as small as that, hearing that they listen to the show each day. I won't forget Ezra's name because that was probably the coolest story I've heard all season, where one of our insiders told me that him and his wife, while they were awaiting the birth of their son, were always listening to the show together. And Ezra was born and the Mets reeled off whatever it was, the 8-9 wins straight a couple weeks back. And the insider let me know, my son hasn't seen the Mets lost yet. And that kid's going to grow up listening to Locked On Mets. And that is so cool for me that people have been with me for as long as some of you have, tuning in and really do care about the show and listen every day. I had great interactions in the few Mets games I got out to this year where I met some fans. One in particular comes to mind. I believe his name was Ryan, actually, funny enough. But he told me about how he was living in Scotland because his wife's job took him out there, and they were there for a couple of years. And he said, my show was a piece of home that he got to go to every single day. And that was such a cool experience to hear that from him. I saw another insider or another listener at the game who told me that, his uncles and his dad and all of them listened to the show, or it's just so many moments. A couple of kids that met me in DC that were, in their early 20s, a couple years younger than me, that had taken a road trip from New York to DC to watch the game and to meet me. And they were listening to Locked On Mets on the drive. All of these experiences that I've had this year have been so heartwarming. And it's been such an incredible season. In the middle of May, I didn't do this consciously. And it was when the Mets were spiraling, but there was always something. If you guys have been listening all year, you might remember I had an intro where it was, it's Groundhog Day for the New York Mets. They found whatever it was. It was something about Groundhog's Day, because in May, it felt like every day there was a collapse, a blow up, an ugly game. And through that all, I just made the decision that I was going to post every single day. Yes, the Locked On Podcast Network is your team every day. We're very proud of that, but it's Monday through Friday is typically what we're asked to do. But I always felt with the baseball season, you might get the best game of the week on a Friday. So I was doing those shows, whether it was a great Mets win or in May, a lot of times it was bad losses. And I'm not going to lie, there's still part of it where I don't do this show for free. Doing more shows obviously is more opportunities for me, but really it was just about a team that had something inherently interesting about them even before they took off. And wanting to go through the grind with this team. I'm not a player. I'm not working as hard as them. I'm not traveling and flying and all this other stuff. But every single night, I made it a point to get in front of this desk, or when I was on the road doing some of my summer travel, bringing my microphone, and whether I was in a car, a closet, wherever I could find a space to record, making sure I got that episode in for the morning each day, because I know that there are so many of you that start your day with this show. And it's just been a amazing run, well over 100 days in a row doing this show, and it's not going to stop until the Mets are eliminated. So I hope that I'm doing this show every single day all the way through October as well, because when I finally get to that point where it's a Saturday and no Mets game was played on Friday and I have no reason to record, it's going to hurt a little bit when this season ends. But that's not today, because the New York Mets are going to the playoffs. We'll be back for another show tomorrow morning. Cheers to you all. Let's go Mets.